love neuroanatomy. I'll tell you in a moment about who inspired me most into neuroanatomy. And I'm not a neurologist. I'm far from it. But I certainly have always enjoyed neurological cases as a specialist, and but that knowledge of anatomy, you know, comes really to the fore with neurological lesion localization, for example.
Neuroanatomy, I think, is one of the most classic examples because it's generally intimidating, I think, to many because the nervous system is so complex. Um, but there are some patterns and basic fundamentals that, if you can engage with those and develop confidence and a good working knowledge, it sort of demystifies it a bit and makes it easier and improves your confidence for doing it the next time, which is so very important in building your skill set and just growing as a clinician.
Well, let me tell you a story, if I may, or let me explain
Please.
how what you have just said affected me in my training. So I did my residency at Melbourne University. And when I started, I would say I knew no neuroanatomy, no neurology, and I, like, as you said, most people were moderately terrified of the concepts behind neurology. So I think I was very brave, actually. I decided to tackle this head on, and I went and did an externship for 6 weeks, a long time, in the United States with two neuroanatomy neurologists. I went to Cornell University, so that's in upstate New York, and worked with Professor Alexander or Sandy DeLahunta.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an absolutely gifted teacher. We know him, I think all of us know of him because of the dissection guide to the dog, DeLahunta, as we used to call it. But of course, he was part of the Big Miller anatomy book. He was a co-author of that. And he also wrote um, the definitive, I would suggest, at least for many years, the definitive neuroanatomy and clinical neurology text, which I do have.
Yep.
Well, I have behind me, and I have my original one. Here we go. But I did just want to show you, signed by him.
Ah,
Okay,
okay.
um,
I have
but
it in
then
my stack, but it's not signed.
not signed, and then of course this is the more recent one.
Wow.
Um, but uh, he was a somewhat eccentric gentleman, with an enormous and encyclopedic knowledge of anatomy, but with neuroanatomy in particular, and famous in terms of the training he provided was that he conducted his clinical or neurological rounds at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
Um, and I, I can't remember now. I'm not sure if I ever knew quite why he did that, but he
Okay.
did. He would come into the vet school at Cornell at 3 o'clock in the morning, and all the clinicians with neurological cases would have left the patients who were in the cages. This is not just small companion animals. This was horses, and there was always a donkey or two, and maybe a cow, or across the species. And they'd have left notes for him, and somebody would have compiled a list of the patients they wanted him to examine. His neurology residents would be with him, so that was part of the job description. I think they had to get up
Mhm.
at 3 o'clock in the morning to do this with him. And then there was always a legion, or a few people like myself doing externships, who traveled all around the world to come and work with this great man. And there we all were. It would be a little band of observers, and Dr. D, as he was called, Dr. D would do his neuro exams, and we'd all run the dogs up and down, or or the horse or whatever it was up and down the barn, and he would make lesion localizations and explain the neuroanatomy as we went. And of course, he'd written the books. But then what was more extraordinary, and an example of him as a teacher was, he I would say, well, Dr. D, I don't quite understand, the pupillary light reflex, for example. Oh, Peter, right, oh, Peter, okay. And he'd say, well, come and see me, not this afternoon, because it was 3 o'clock in the morning. Come and see me tomorrow afternoon. And I'd go up to his lab. He had a lab, sort of dissection lab, and his office. And he would have laid out for me, on all the benches, specimens of dissected optic nerves, optic chiasma, sections of the brain, labeled, pretectal nucleus, into the brain stem. His book, of course, with the pathways, and then videos. We had VCRs in those days, and he'd have 3 or 4 VCRs, labeled, for me to look at, and he'd say, Peter, just take your time, do this, and then come and see me, and we'll discuss it.
How
Just
extraordinary.
just incredible.
It's almost impossible not to learn something in that environment.
Ah, well, so I suppose, to come back to why I was telling you this, I went to America. I'm terrified of neurology, or at least very apprehensive, should I say. And I came back. I also went down to North Carolina State University and worked with another a neurologist, clinical neurologist, a guy called Joe Cornegay at North Carolina. And when I came back from the US, I thought I knew it all, and my confidence had improved immensely. And so from then on, reading neurology books, and I was no longer daunted by it, and so then I was able to build knowledge such as it is, thereafter. It's a good example of applied anatomy, isn't it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And what a wonderful story.